And here we are, the Hardcore Marketing Show. My name is Casey Cheshire. I'm so excited for you all to join me here today. We've got an awesome show coming up, an amazing guest. We spoke yesterday, had an awesome chat, and I almost wish we had that recorded as well. So ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce our star really for today's show. It's Jim Lenskold, and the guest here on the Hardcore Marketing Show. He is the president and founder of the Lenskold Group. And Jim, great to be here. Great to have you here and say hello.
Casey, I'm so excited. This is it's such a high energy program. And you're such a great person to talk to. I think we're going to have a great time here for this hour.
Absolutely. Well, welcome. And again, for everyone listening, today's show is sponsored by Cheshire Impact, helping you maximize your marketing automation and CRM. Ba-bam. And man, now, Jim, let's just start out. This is the Hardcore Marketing Show. We like to throw down shots fired, as we say. Are there any myths? And maybe I should just preface, the reason we have you on here today, the CSI, the maturity model for marketing automation says, don't just go build things, be smart about it, do the next step. And the theme for this month is reporting. It's ROI. It's understanding where did you get those really good leads on the B2B side that turned into revenue out the back end? Where are the successful ones coming from? And what's amazing is we talk to so many people that don't know the answer to that. So it's the theme for this month, and I was researching it, and wouldn't you know, you wrote the book on it. So
I did.
Literally, Marketing ROI. Y'all should check it out on Amazon. But Jim wrote this book on Marketing ROI. That's the theme for this month. It's number 2 on the CSI for marketing automation. So you're here, but we started talking yesterday, and it sounds like there's some myths out there. There's some bogus strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crush right at the beginning.
Yeah. And I'm going to set it up by saying one of the things that where people go wrong, and it's along the lines of the myth, is I'm not even sure what ROI is, right? Return on investment.
Right.
And so I like to define it up front, because I've seen a million things like, what is return? Is it impressions? Is it engagement? No. This is the real stuff. ROI is a financial term. It is return on investment. The return is typically margin or net profit, right? So that's what the finance people care about. And then the investment we know is how much we spend, but we need to define it, because there's a lot of reasons we use this. It's a financial calculation. And if you're going to report results on marketing that have financial outcomes, the finance people are going to look close, and we want to keep that credibility, right?
Yeah. You're in the boardroom, if marketing finally got a seat at the chair,
get there, right?
You got a CMO, and then the CFO just blasts you on your use of a financial term. So,
right.
So without watering it down in the marketing side,
a bit, or maybe misusing it, maybe making it too big of an umbrella. But here's the easy way to think about the calculation is, if you spend $1 million on advertising, marketing, any events, anything that we're putting into that category, and you make $1 million back in net profit, you are even. That's 0% ROI. Hey, I got my money back. And look, it's one of the things we'll talk about a little bit is, how much do we have to make? But if I make $1.2 million back in profit, I am 20% ahead. Okay, now people are I have a benchmark, and I can say, all right, I want to increase that. Obviously, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get smarter, whether at every stage of the buyer's journey. If we spend a little bit more, do we make more money? So that's the first part to kind of set the stage.
Because we want to know what's working, right? What's working, what's not working, so we can stop doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's 3 big things I always look for once we put ROI on the board is, are we making more money than we're spending? Good checkpoint. And
Seems logical.
Yeah, exactly. And if I can look at all this ROI across different areas, it should give me some idea, where should I allocate my budget? Let's put money where it makes money. So that's the second one. But then there's another piece too, and that's once I get this feedback, I need to figure out how to improve what I'm doing. And that leads me to what I think is a key myth, and that a lot of marketers, if they're not doing this already, they go into it thinking this is pass-fail. So by pass-fail, they means, well, if I don't get a good ROI, they take the money back. But that's not how it works. In fact, in reality, it doesn't work that way. It is it's adding new information into our decision support, right? So if we can count leads, if we can look at conversion rates, if we look at marketing effectiveness, and we now can add in how does that look financially, then we get the chance to say, well, wait a second. Oh, now if I look at my, how different marketing performs, and I see I have this one marketing program that's good all the way through. In fact, it generates leads, but they're not converting.
Right.
Well, what do I different? Is it me and the marketing group because I should be doing messaging, or is it the sales team that maybe I should invest some money to help them out? In other words, do some things there, or maybe I just have crappy leads, right? But it's this idea of it's a feedback loop.
Right.
So, yeah.
I think we were chatting about this the other day. I was working with a company, and when we first started working with them, they were doing 80 trade shows, and 80 trade shows, and something was working because they were growing, but they didn't know which ones.
Right.
They were literally held hostage, right? They were shackled into
That's right.
80 is a lot, right?
80 is a lot, yeah.
The 80 to coordinate, to attend. That's a lot of open bars right there.
I have companies that have 5 and they're still asking the same question. Do I have to be at all these events? This is a lot of resources.
Right. You're wasting time, money, energy. And just the final part to that was they put some sort of measurement in place. In this case, they're using Pardot.
Oh, yeah.
They found out it was almost silly, like a Pareto 80-20. About 30 of those 80 shows, 30, less than half, were actually the effective ones.
Right.
The other 50 were garbage.
Yeah.
They were like burning money in piles.
And it hurts, right? Because it doesn't hurt. It's no, actually, and here's what I'm curious about too, because when I do this, whether it's events or other marketing channels, a lot of times what I find, and this is part of that pass fail, is you have that set of marketing that it's working today. Though, that's where I want to make sure I learn from that. I put more money into that. Then there's the portion that not only are they not working, I really didn't stand a chance. You know what I mean? There's just, if I look at this, it's just so far off. But there's this middle group that I always look for, right? Because if our role as marketers is to improve ROI, so it's not just funding what works, it's also finding this middle group and saying, you know what? If we approach this differently, right? Some just fall a little short, or maybe we didn't. Sometimes spending more makes the difference. What if that pattern was, hey, all of these top tier events, we're actually buying a speaker slot, or we're paying a little bit more for a better booth. Hey, that's what we're looking for, is this process of just what do I do different? What do I do different? To me, it's always better if you think about it. We make a plan, we fund what we can, and then the next idea is just kind of sit there. If I learn about what's happening in the ones that I've done, it's easier to improve than to start over and just say, throw that out, bring in something, and I'll just roll the dice and see if I could get a better ROI. Totally. So that's that mindset we want as we go through with this ROI.
That's huge. I was thinking of like gym marketing. ROI is not gym class, right? This is not
exactly right. Yeah.
Slow and steady. I love that. So with the pass and fail, you lose so much, because if you market as fail, to your point, you're starting over. You're going somewhere else.
Right.
And man, I thought about the trade show thing. I've been to some trade shows and some events that didn't go very well, or they were okay. But would they have done better if we had been a speaker? Maybe.
Yeah, right.
Or let's track it. Now let's be a speaker next year. Does it have any sort of effect on it or not? No. Okay. Well, now we know it is what it is. But if it does, now we're improving on it.
Right. There's a learning journey.
New show. Yeah. A new area. Yeah.
Yeah. But we're constantly asking that question of, what could I do better and what else would work? If you take all your marketing and put it into one marketing plan and go, things will change and you'll learn from it. But if you have other, if you can put some variations, some testing it. I think we said we're going to go into testing some other point, but think about the learning curve. That's the big point here, is we're constantly get some feedback, do something different, adjust.
Right.
Once you figure it out, the marketplace and the competitors change. So this never ends. Right.
And maybe we'll touch on this too. The idea that if it's pass or fail, but people might be scared that
that's right.
Actually, if they approach it pass or fail, politically, culturally, you set yourself up more of a target. Ideally, you shouldn't
that's right.
target in your company, but
Yeah.
hey, politics happens. So if it's it's on or off, and it's a red, then you're dead, right?
That's
but
right.
if it's a gradual improvement, that makes a lot. It's more defensible. You say this is steady progress.
Yeah.
So what's the point? Like, you keep moving forward. Is that the idea?
Yeah, exactly. Well, put it this way. There was one company, this goes back a few years, but a lot of this is a cultural transformation, right? None of us need more work, especially when it comes to finance or analytics, right? But there's a tipping point where all of a sudden as marketers, you go, oh, wait a second, this is actually more strategic than I think. And sometimes it requires a creative solution. But there was one company that they would have reward and recognitions for ROI, but not based on the actual ROI level, based on how you improved. So if you went from negative 50%, like you were just not recovering that money, to negative 20%, you would be the type of person that would be rewarded. Look, if we have marketing that's influencing buyer behavior, we don't want to abandon it. But we have gaps, and we have to figure that out. So there's a lot. It's this idea. The other part I like too is it's really good at kind of motivating a dialogue and talk about sales and marketing alignment. When both groups want to drive more sales is a good thing, right? But sometimes, in B2B lead gen, what's one of the most frustrating points is when you have a set of leads you've earned through somehow, pass it on to the sales organization, and they don't get called or contacted or something. Oh my gosh. So that's where it happens. No, I know. But then it's that business dialogue where you get to say, hey, look, why would we invest this money to go halfway through the journey? Not only do we not close the deal or contact these people, but the people get frustrated because they kind of thought we should. So anyway, it's just learning, and it's a dialogue, and it's making sure all the pieces add up to what really, what really counts is you got to cross that revenue line. Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned that feedback loop too. Stephanie, one of the guests on actually the very first episode, she mentioned that at her company, it was Archive Social, they actually have almost like a daily feedback between marketing and sales of the conversations they had. And I know it sounded like a unicorn to me.
Yeah, that's great.
Heck is going on
daily.
Here?
That's impressive.
Hey, I had a good call with this, and they kind of meet and have some tea, or she didn't tea, but they probably had beer on the sales side.
That's right.
But that feedback, that the progress to move it forward.
Yeah.
It's interesting, the idea of, well, if it's negative 20% ROI, well, it's better than 50, and then like a B2B sales cycle could be 9 months. So maybe you're not going to realize that full ROI until a year and a half, but maybe it's like a 300% a year and a half from now. You know
what? The timing is really important. And as companies, look, we can't tackle everything all at once, right? We have this idea that we have to build capabilities. But one of the key things in B2B that I kind of look at as almost an essential ingredient is the idea of we need projected revenue, projected ROI because of that long sales cycle. So I will tell you, in almost every case, we would look, whether it's, let's say we got through the majority of our lead generation. A couple different things we could do. We could take that average conversion rate, say this is where we're going to run. If we get better, we could sometimes use our lead scores to say, look, this campaign brought in groups with a higher lead score than this campaign, which means they're more likely to convert, right? So we can get better over time.
Right.
And then as we go, 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, we start using this combination of booked revenue and some portion of the opportunity revenue or whatever else we have kind of in the pipeline, right? Because we can't wait to make the decisions. To me, 3 months is the longest you'd want to go before you say, do we repeat that or do we move on?
That's a good point. You can't wait that 9 months.
No.
Really?
So, but it's always exactly. But it's always this idea of how do we get a little bit smarter. So every piece of information is going to get us closer and closer to being more accurate. Huh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's like you need to know what you have and what you don't have. And I get this. Yeah. Now how do you do that projection, right? Analytics is a lot of times what's the term? We're looking in the past. We're looking at
we've got
the trailing indicators, and they don't necessarily indicate what's going to happen. Sure.
Yes. Well, so there's that combination of, if we're just getting started, I would probably say that historical run rates are at least my best guess, right? It's better, and it's also better than not doing that step, because otherwise I just have a pool of leads. But what I really want to know is, I think when it comes to projection, the better I get at understanding lead quality, right? And to me, lead quality, there's two components. The number one is, are they likely to convert? But the second one is the value too, because sometimes we have a lower lead volume, but we expect them to close at a higher rate, right? So usually that one we can see by the sales team, within a short period of time, if they get into a sales qualified lead and they put some revenue in there, we can see if they're higher and lower than the average. But what's interesting is a lot of the best, not just the technology, but the analytics side that's kind of been improving for marketing based on all this good data is the predictive indicators, right? Okay. And so this is where, if you get your lead scoring and say, hey, we tend to convert higher in certain industries or certain types of businesses, or if I see the role, the buyer's role or their job description, then if I could weight that in, then I could say, instead of going with the average conversion rate, I think I have a better projection. And again, it could be somewhat manual in the beginning. It could be very automated as it moves on.
Yeah.
So why not take the information that's available? And the nice thing is, kind of once you go through and figure this out and set it up, it kind of continues to run like any good system, right? So the hard part is moving up in your capabilities. From there, it gets to, hey, that's great. Let's use it. Let's figure out what we do next. So it's a big part. That whole lead scoring, lead routing is a lot of what feeds into this.
It's funny, as we were talking yesterday, we're definitely going to hit testing. And I mentioned that testing is, I think, number 7 on the maturity model for marketing automation. So, hey, we're getting you signed up already.
I know. It's one of my favorite topics, because how else do you move fast, and how else do you beat the competition? It's because you figure out something different. And I'm going to save some good tips for when we can reconnect again.
But what's funny is also lead rating, having a two-dimensional lead rating system is also on the roadmap, and it's number 5. And having that dialogue with sales, not just how busy are they, but also what quality of a lead they are. Sometimes people just track busyness, and they don't track quality. So so I'm writing down over here. Okay, got to have you back for lead rating, back for so get comfy over there.
Yeah, right. Look at this. If you think about it, this is what makes it exciting. Is as we get smarter as marketers, don't you love? It's like in any sports, you go out there and you perform better, and you have some feedback that tells you you're performing better. You get to go tell the boss, whether it's someone within marketing or outside of marketing. It builds respect for marketing. All these pieces are part of that. It's just, we're out there to beat the competition and get the right buyers through that journey.
Yeah, totally. Especially when you have I've had environments where I first come in there as the new marketer, and I'm that guy, or
right.
Who they're in marketing. I think they do collateral for us or some branding.
Oh
or something,
gosh,
right?
that's where it starts, right?
We set up marketing automation, CRM, we get things cranking. Suddenly we get rid of some of that friction on the buyer's journey. You're like, I like this guy. He started the leads over here. They're taking me out for sushi and everything.
Oh yeah.
You're right. The result of it is huge. But one of the things I wanted to sort of bring it back into even recording is one of the things we were chatting about. And I think there's more to this than meets the eye. The idea that you mentioned earlier, it starts out as like a technical request. Hey, build me a dashboard or report. But really it ends up being a strategic question. Maybe you could talk to me about, people tend to be focused, and this happens in marketing automation too. People can be focused on that, click and build that thing, but they're not asking the question, why am I doing it? What is the goal to accomplish with this?
Yeah. Well, this is where a lot of the big wins for ROI come in the planning stage, not in the back end. You think of it as a measurement end game, and I will tell you, I'm not even kidding how big these are in terms of. It's almost like saying, it's almost the exercise of, if I spend this money, what do I think is going to happen?
Right.
And it could be anywhere from I generate leads to,
I like that.
Hey, I build brand awareness. I get some engagement. And you have to ask the question, and then what happens? And it's a little bit of, Well,
And then,
right.
yeah.
And so it could be, well, in the past, when we've done this, we see that a portion of those continue on, or whatever it's going to be. And it forces you to, it's a good exercise. It's to run the numbers, because even, once you run the numbers and say, well, this is what I think is going to happen.
Right.
There's two different things. One is you could say, well, how could I make that better when I'm here? I was like, oh, because sometimes I don't think downstream.
Right.
But the other thing it does, it says, wait a second, is there someone downstream that's going to take the baton and keep this going? I've got all these people engaged, and I can't tell you, it's that same, I think, if you go back to, hey, you generate leads and no one calls, what good is it? But it's also the idea of, if I get people on social, if I get them engaged, look, we have to build this over time. So we're not expecting everything to just pop out a revenue, but we have to have some idea of how it connects and how it adds up. And so if my plan is, hey, I'm going to engage these, and then by engaging people, they'll get content that they opted in for, because now they're following me on Twitter and Facebook and wherever else. And then I expect a portion of those to convert to leads. That's this idea that, it's a good plan, and it gets me to, it also in a sense tells me what to track and monitor. Like content is a good part that could sometimes happen real early in the journey.
Yep.
So what we tend to do is to say, hey, I invited someone to a webinar, or I put out a white paper. How many downloads did I get? What did I get?
Right.
The better metric is re-engagement.
Yeah.
Do those people come back within, let's say, 3 months or something? Because that tells me how good the content is. Right. The first one just tells me how good my offer for the content was. They could go through and spend an hour on a webinar and go, well, those guys suck. So that's where this idea of what happens next becomes a big part of that whole approach. And really, how do you maximize or improve? Well, that's going to be a good indicator. Right.
And sometimes we lose track of, who the person, there's like a human going through this process.
Right.
There's a debate on Twitter. I kind of, I have trouble with BS. I have trouble just retweeting BS. Someone was saying, hey, you should throw out B2C and B2B and just be B to H, B to human. And I was like, that's lovey-feely. My heart goes out to you, the Titanic, Celine Dion, but you still need B2B and B2C, because there's two different, right?
Very different.
I get it. But when people say, when anyone says throw something out, I'm always a little like, okay. Someone said throw out the marketing funnel, or
I've heard that a million times.
I'm like, beware of anyone saying throw out X. But one of the things you were talking about there in the planning, it's necessary. Planning can often be missing in a lot of marketing teams. Sometimes we get so action oriented, we just want to go.
And this is another one that, look, you got to set up some basic spreadsheet that says, here's my spend, here's what I expect's happening. But it's after you get past that setup, it becomes so easy. But it's that it helps you weigh out these trade-offs that are tough. The number one driver of ROI is targeting. It's where it's in other words, I have to spend.
I'm quoting you on that one. I love
you
that.
are.
That's
and
great.
I can't believe it took me this long to say that one too.
So, that's a great one.
But think about it. You have to go after segments you could win, and there has to be some level of value, right? Why just talk to people or engage people that are not going to buy? Right. So that's one of the key trade-offs is, if I go out to this group and I spend this money, lightly across a big group or heavily against a small group, right? Because I only have so much money, does it make a difference? If I spend money at different points of the journey, it's this idea of I can't run these numbers in my head, because how do I justify sending fewer leads in?
Right.
But they're fewer better leads. And guess what? Taking out the bad ones somehow, however we figure that out as marketers, we'll get that sales team going, oh, wait a second, I'm actually now a little bit more interested.
Yeah.
There's a whole secondary effect. But it's this idea of, can I run, I would phrase it as running an ROI scenario. This is how I'm spending the money. And this is even if it's my best guess of how I think I will make that money back. I don't need perfect information. But when I said talked about big wins, it's because there's companies that sat down and did this with programs they run, and they said, well, we never actually ran it all the way through to revenue.
Okay.
And they looked and they're going, you know what? we can't make this profitable. We can't, there's not enough here. Like take something like in a retention oriented pieces, like these people were going to buy anyway. Where do I think I'm winning people? Or I'm just going after the wrong segment.
Right.
And it's interesting is how they could just adjust the plan. And now they're going out and from the beginning, the profit potential is better.
Right.
They're smarter. And again, because I thought about what happens later, I also then think about the metrics, the tracking, because I said, oh, I have to watch for this because I'm not sure that really happens. I took a guess. So it's, that's that idea of look for big wins. Well, bring it up to the upfront. After the fact, if you think about it, when we measure ROI, the best we could do is apply it on the next round. Right. So we're back to the planning stage, right?
Right. As long as you're not starting from scratch every time.
Right.
So, I love this and the idea of, targets or segments you can win, and understanding that. But I love in my head, I remember that it was a Chevy, the Nova, the Nova.
The Nova.
There was this car. And one of these days we'll have like someone just sitting here just looking up my craziness.
Oh, yeah.
There was a car, and in Spanish, Nova means no go. Right?
Oh,
so
right.
Sell a car.
That's
it wasn't
right.
so hot in South America and all that. They're like, why would I buy a car that doesn't go? That makes no sense,
Yeah, that's right.
So you can't win that segment. Change that name.
Yeah, I think back to a promotion from a while ago, another car one. I think it was Mitsubishi, and they were marketing to this really young segment, like the 20s, to buy your first car.
Nice.
Went all hip on the ads and everything.
Yeah.
And they bundled in 0% financing, which ended up this young group. By the time they went, the defaults on the loans were so high. They lost, I want to say like $400 million. It's some huge number that, they just didn't put the pieces together. So you shift your segment to, they'll buy, and you're making this so attractive, but they don't have the money, So again, different groups, marketing, not talking to finance or whoever else, but just didn't envision how that would all come together.
Those little common sense snags right there. Let's give a free key to the castle to the most irresponsible group that just found newfound freedom. They're out of school and everything. No sense for anything.
That's right.
Here, just go ahead, kids. Play around.
Yeah.
Play around.
That's right. Right. So anyway, but it's this idea of, just thinking through and again, should you have tested that? Maybe. Or should you have looked at your historical data?
Right.
Oh, wait a second. How do they perform? So it's just getting smarter.
Totally. And now part of this, and again, hardcore marketing, little Marine Corps action here.
Yeah.
There's a discipline to measurement. And I know we were chatting. Can you talk to me about that? You're an organization. Well, the discipline to plan, but then the discipline to keep track of it. Or if you got to tag on the tactical side, you got to tag something every time.
Right.
Or you got to have the report and hold yourself accountable. What does that flow? How do you, if you don't have that culture, how do you get that culture? How do you create that culture of accountability and discipline?
Yeah. It's a big deal. And I think this is where another one of the myths kind of come up, or the hurdles is everyone thinks there has to be perfect data and perfect measurement. So what happens is any measurement you put on the table, someone could knock it down. Oh, that's not going to work. Well, of course not, because the future can be different than the past. But think of it as a progression. Is if you do no measurement, which look, already today, marketers are way better than they used to back when it was, we have better data. So, but then you track.
Remember a click counter?
Clicks. Yeah.
Hey, I got 835 visitors to my page. I refreshed it like 300 times, but.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, but it's this idea of, don't be concerned that everything has to be perfect. Take a step forward. So I know the big conversation, we even ended up on this yesterday, is that idea of, look, single attribution is just saying the last touch. Some people use first touch, but the last touch generally is going to get credit for pushing that contact out there that we've marketed to so many times into a category that they're now qualified from marketing standpoint to become a lead. Do they continue on? And so when we get to the end and we look at our metrics, whatever metrics on the journey, we would attribute it back to that touch point. And that is a huge step forward.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
the big thing you have to watch for there is to make sure that you compare things on an equal level. So if there's a tactic that's really good at getting new names and it doesn't convert, it's so early in the journey, leave it in that category. Don't worry about the conversion to sales and leads. But if you can see, other than that, you've got a lot of touch points out there, which ones are doing well, and then, work your way from there. But it does help you. And look, it's not even that. I wouldn't even put multi-touch attribution as the next step. That you build to over time. That's complicated.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's not perfect either. So don't get too crazy.
Yeah.
The big challenge there is a lot of people come into multi-touch attribution and then they just subjectively weight. Well, this one must be well, it's not analytic anymore. So
right.
So look, my
For the
progression.
record, that's number 10 on the list. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Good.
Yeah.
That's a complicated one, but it's the technology is making it better. So
It is,
so look, we're all getting there. But my progression on the measurement side is usually results tracking is if it's a touch point and we say, well, we know we marketed to that person and they did this, that's the first on the list. We have to be able to interpret it from and actually maybe equal to that, but on a separate category is kind of a pre-post, a trend. And so in B2B, we don't use that as much because we have a lot of direct relationships. But if there's mass media, if you put it this way, if we were, for some reason, we had radio or any type of advertising support, I would look at maybe our paid search results before and after, because I know it's making a lift, but where do I get that? And so it's a trend. It's not perfect because there's other factors influencing it. I like to look at my funnel conversion rates and say, look, when I do something different, can I boost a conversion rate, especially maybe in the sales pipeline? Because I don't know that I get a 1-for-1 for that. But look, it's another indicator. Right. So you got these two that are kind of in the good, not perfect, but then you move up, and the third on my list is market testing, because it's a controlled experiment. And you can statistically kind of prove it out is if we do something to group A different than group B, however we control for that, I know I've controlled that I've isolated one, whatever it is, a campaign, a touch point. So at least that's moving me up. And then
what are those three again? There's three.
Oh, yeah. So I do results tracking and pre-post, kind of a trend when you don't when it's kind of aggregated numbers and not individuals. Okay. Right? A kind of a before and after. And then the third one's market testing with experimental design.
Okay.
And then the fourth one is the modeling, the analytics. And that's where you use regression or other techniques that get to uncover things that are way too complicated for us to just look at and see. And so, marketing mix model now works pretty good for B2B. You have to do a little bit of adjustments because of lag time. But if you want to get these media factors, if you want to look at all different touch points, it's a version of multi-touch attribution. Multi-touch, and multi-touch attribution fits under that category too of way more analytic to say, hey, there's all these different things happening at one time. What's pushing sales up or down?
Got it. And these four things, this is great. This is like school's in session here.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, for everybody listening, these are the four what? These are,
in fact, so I would describe these as the four categories of measurement. Every measurement falls under one of these buckets, although there's lots of variations. But if you think about it, I've been doing this so long, no one's ever gave me another one. So I'm going to stick with that's the four.
Bring it. Just bring it. People. Come on.
Yeah, I'm pretty open-minded, so I'd love to add something to the list. But
maybe we'll add AI to the fifth one.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, so results tracking, is that just simply, A goes in, B comes out?
Exactly, right. And that's most of our metrics that we start with, right? Because
would you put first touch into that category, like first touch? Tracking?
Yeah. Okay. It's a track. I know that person who bought came from this source.
Love it.
Yeah. So
good first step. And then pre-post, that is the aggregate. That's
like more that's why in consumer you might use that a lot, because I ran an ad and did it, before and after, with and without the ad. But there's a lot of different areas in B2B where we can still get that, where you're just putting something into a mix. If I put something, if I give the sales team some tools, I don't know when they're using that, but if I see conversion rates go up, and look, why it's not a market test is I didn't give it to half of them, I gave it to all of them. So all I have is a before and after.
Right.
And then I might look, how much do I have to look before and after? Now, keep in mind the
Hence
flaw there.
pre and post.
Yeah, pre and post. So
Yeah,
the
interesting.
flaw there is, I've had a lot of marketers that use this, and they go, yeah, so we do this marketing, and when sales go up, we attribute it to marketing, but sometimes sales go down at the post. That must be something else. I'm going,
It's
yeah, but
sales' fault, right?
yeah, no, or something. But sometimes you have fluctuations in
Yep.
the sales and all these
Sure.
other outcomes that are not related to marketing. So if there's this random fluctuation, there's this group that's just counting the ups and ignoring the downs. But I go, look, sometimes the ups are not marketing either. You can't.
Yeah.
You got to be smart about using the techniques.
I have a big thing. I hate the majority of SEO companies.
Yeah.
And before anyone blows me up on Twitter, actually blow me up, that's fine. There are a few of you out there that are honest, hardworking, great search engine experts. But those people out there, there's a lot of these snake oil sales folks.
Yeah.
Oh, SEO this. I had hired. I didn't hire them. I inherited one at one company once, and I asked for some actual reporting, some ROI, and they sent me death by reports from Google Analytics. It said absolutely nothing. And you know what? What happens over time is the website traffic increases. And I tell people, if you're breathing, your website traffic is probably going to increase over time.
That's true.
Robots.
Right.
So you can't necessarily claim anything happened there other than you're not dead.
Right.
Even still, maybe artists increase over time after they die. So it's
There
like
you
some
go.
of these metrics, you could try to claim them, but did you really do that? That's a good point. Okay, so that's pre and post. Would that be the same thing how they measured like television? Wisconsin bought nothing, and now they buy everything. We ran an ad in Wisconsin. Is that pre-post?
If they're not doing modeling, and remember, sometimes this intense modeling, you only have enough. That's expensive and it's hard. You might run that once a year, so the pre-post would fill the gap. Yeah,
got it.
It belongs in the mix.
As the modeling.
Right. Nothing's perfect, but they all belong in the mix. That's what I was looking.
So that's pre-post, and then tell me about the market testing then.
So again, controlled experiment. They use this, for the medications we take and everything else. I mean, it's a pretty serious approach, and so that's where you're looking statistically to say, look, if I go to Group A and Group B, whether it's a direct, whether it's a A/B test online where I'm showing some ads and not, or whether I'm trying to see if I need mass media support. All of it is to say, if I have two like groups, then one group tells me what this other group would have done, and I can compare that to what they actually did. Did I get a lift? Is
the difference that you have over like pre-post that you have a control group?
Exactly. That, like in other words, pre-post things change over time. Even everything from seasonality to the competitors did something different to, what, quite honestly, the weather could throw it off. It just happened.
Yeah, true.
So you're getting all these different things. That's a lot of noise in there. The A/B is intended to be, and for the most part, does work in a much more controlled. Doesn't mean you eliminated everything. If you were testing something in Boston versus Philadelphia, just randomly picking some cities, and it rained in Boston, obviously you might not see the same sales you see. But if you pick multiple markets across the U.S. and you could get rid of the noise. So it depends on what you're doing. Right. And when it's in a direct mode and you randomly pick, this group versus this group, chances are if you didn't do anything, they should have the same results. Right. So that's where you kind of can look and say, okay, let's put this offer out there. Let's put this touch point out there. Let's put something. And I tend to, it's a good opportunity to kind of boost something that you could come back to in the testing. But I always say it's only so many times you could actually hold out a control group or do something different. So go for the big wins. Don't, you can test the subject line, but why not test your strategy? I mean, I've had a chance along the way to really go out and ask some big questions that are not limited to that one learning. I just then take it and apply it to all of my marketing. Yeah. You're trying to get people through the buyer journeys. Yeah. And if you spend too much, at least you can change buyer behavior. You come back and figure out how to do it efficiently, but go for effectiveness first.
So Jim, are you throwing down the gauntlet? Are you saying subject line testing is for wimps? Get out there and test your strategy?
Yeah, if it's free and easy and doesn't interfere with anything, sure, do it. But from a business standpoint, you should be saying, what are some big unknowns that we would like to know, or someone has an idea, but it's a little bit different. Look, controlled experiment. check that one off. And I see this is probably the most underutilized measurement out of the whole group. There's not, I'm like the market testing. Yeah. Oh yeah. Because, and again, it's limited in frequency, but it's very strategic. So, in a modeling, you put in these numbers and it spits out and says, oh, this contributed more than this channel, but it's very tactical. And in an A/B test, you get to say, well, here's A, I did this in A. I can look at everything from how the brand perceptions changed to how leads changed to did people convert. I get to look at the whole beginning and end. What in fact, maybe the test didn't work, but I could diagnose it. It's the strategic piece. It's the deep dive piece.
Got it.
So it just belongs in the measurement mix. It's not your primary measurement.
Sure.
It's just your big win measurement.
And then finally, 4 is the modeling.
The modeling.
Touch. It's your multivariate. It's multiple things.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's and it's right. And it could be someone kind of you can do correlation analysis, and at least it's a little bit more. Like, in other words, when pick like if there's a touch point along the journey, is it more likely to end up as a purchase or not?
Right.
And then even to the point of I just did one not that long ago that just simple correlations, but it's this analytics that say, out of all these web metrics that go up, which ones correlate most to leads?
Yeah.
Because leads, in other words, the leads might lag. In fact, in this case, it lagged like 6 weeks. So, but there was some activity first. But now I know I could actually put that metric kind of higher on the list and say, oh, wait a second, this is something meaningful.
Right.
So it's
or kilometric, right?
Or kilometric,
where
oh gosh,
someone wants to know about the bounce rate on a particular website, or the time on page. That's a killer, right?
Oh gosh,
Google Analytics. Time, and for everyone out there, time on page is how long did someone spend on a particular web page?
Yeah.
And the idea is, well, the longer they spend, the more interested they are. Or they couldn't find something
right
for it, or maybe they found their answer really quickly and they went on to the next. Like it's such a weak, weird.
That's
metric.
right.
So many better things to look at. So
no, but here's the point though: is that for some companies it is a meaningless one, but for others it may be because they do have the good content. In other words, that's why we do the analysis to see what pops. It's not like, and I wouldn't go out with the results of that company and say, oh, this is the key metric. I would say, run the analysis. It wasn't even that hard. It's just a correlation. We did it in Excel. In fact, we could have the students do this. So, but anyway, it's this idea of using some of the statistical techniques. And again, correlation is not really in this bucket as much as these other ones. So, but this is where analytically, how do we take all those touch points on the journey? So there's the multi-touch attribution is good at looking over a long period of time. Then you've got mixed models where it's kind of saying, hey, if we peak certain channels and we see an outcome change, then we know it's stronger. But we have to, the model forces you to see it repeatedly, where a pre-post is a one-time. So now you have that statistical confidence that says, I still might have a margin error. It could be 5%, it could be 20%, but I'm a whole lot smarter. And that's the one that, again, you need good data. The cost of this modeling has been coming down partly because the data is better. It's not perfect, but that's where most of the cost goes in bringing all this data together. Right. In fact, if I were to leave people with a tip, I'd say make sure that you find a way to capture and store weekly impressions for every touch point. Especially, now, like, you could, anything that's coming out of the system, your Pardot email is there. It's always there, the history. But if you're running events, or if you're doing certain type of if you're doing some digital media, capture it. In other words, when I talk to people, they go, oh, we had the data, we just didn't bother storing it, or we aggregated or the agency gave us monthly summary, so just store it. Someday as the cost of this stuff comes down, you're going to find more use for it.
But now impressions, though, I get some people going, I mean, I don't have like in my ear like Home Shopping Network, but in my head I have some people going, impressions is old school, man. Why are we tracking impressions? Like what's the thought behind tracking?
That's a good question.
Changes in those.
So the good question, because what we're doing here is we're usually trying to bring in those touch points that can't get tracked.
Yeah.
So so there's a lot of people, in fact, look, some of these digital media companies are throwing this into multi-touch attribution. So You saw a display ad on your Google search.
Sure.
You saw these impressions along the way. Then you clicked, and then you did a few more things. And they're trying to give credit to the seeing the impression. Now,
Right.
they do weights that I don't think are scientifically driven, and they're a little bit self-motivating or self-beneficial in that, hey, I want you to keep paying for that display ad. But what we're looking for is we're trying to say, do those touch points count in the mix? And so a good example would be is, if you're looking for a real short-term view, you could run this modeling to say, as we've had these offline impressions, as we had these other display impressions, all these other things, does it increase our paid search click rate? That's the only trackable outcome.
Sure.
But why would we do all these things? And so this idea, the reason we go to impressions is it could be influential, and it's what we bought.
Yeah.
I mean, some cases we bought the click, so that's fine too. But the click is already a behavior. That's already an action.
Sure.
We're trying to look for something that kind of is a little bit more upstream.
Tracking the whole stream, and you've mentioned this a couple times, journey. And by the way, you're saying the words that I love, the journey, the whole process. Here, you're not just referencing a single report. It's like the timeline. It's a spectrum. And
all its influence. Yeah.
Oh yeah. One of the things that we've even seen with Cheshire is that the idea of the lead to revenue, right? Looking at the whole process from when you first capture a lead, or to your point, even before that with an impression, all the way through the marketing touches, the sales to close one revenue, and to maybe your point, even like not just revenue, but net revenue. And I love that progression. Now there's a lot of things in the progression. So as it comes to reporting, I've heard first touch, last touch. Where do you start? Do you start with first touch, and then obviously you don't start with multi-touch?
No.
What kind of progression do you take people? Is there like your own kind of roadmap in terms of building that up?
If you're looking at the back end results tracking, you're going to start with single attribution, and there's a lot of good learning there. And again, if you make the case that, look, this marketing touch point is not intended to qualify to convert a lead that's going to get that credit, then again, you'll dig deeper and you'll kind of look at it differently. But it's the solid starting point. But the other way is to say, look, when I invest, right? So that's the back end, what drove the sales. But the front end is when I invest money for some certain type of touch point, how do I expect some incremental outcome?
Right.
How and where do I think that's going to show up? Now, so if I say, well, it's going to show up because someone's going to respond, and then I'm going to qualify them for a lead, that group's going to run into my single attribution pipeline. But if I look for other outcomes, I've got to kind of get some understanding of where I think that value would be. And so, how it's one that I understand, but I kind of hate when someone says, well, how about all this branding? Because it's going to make someone more likely. And look, it's true. That's why it's kind of a little tough, but it's going to make someone more likely to click next time.
Right.
And then I go, yeah, but you got people to click this time. Are you going to say that some of that credit belongs to everything that came before it? Oh, no, we don't deduct credit. We only add credit. So that's where you kind of go, a lot of this kind of nets out, or it's too small to chase down.
Yeah.
But again, if your strategy says this touch point is to generate new names, then what you might want to do, there's a couple of ways you can approach it. You might want to say, well, let me integrate that with something that's then going to engage them and convert them. So maybe I look at it, that combined investment, and look at that because that's a good strategy. Other times, and it's another tough area, but sometimes I might have to say, I might look at that and say, well, how does that compare to other sources of new names I could get?
Right.
Does it cost less? Because it's part of my investment. Yeah.
I love that. The idea of it, the single attribution, having someplace to start with. And we always advise people, especially on the CSI, look, marketing automation tools these days, especially Pardot that we work with, very easy if you have a little bit of that reporting discipline, that measurement discipline at the beginning. To set your campaign reports up, it's magic. You can even put in how much you spent on it and have the calculation happen. So it's like, it's so easy to do. Let's nail that. And then let's start moving down the pathway to see more of these details. But one of the things I keep hearing you kind of like run scenarios in your head, and then you even mentioned this thing, an ROI scenario. Is that like something you write out in advance?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So this ROI scenario, I would take a basic Excel spreadsheet. You could get away with probably 10 inputs. That's how, in other words, I have to kind of capture my expenses. I tend to put the funnel journey in there. Like if I'm going to reach these people, and then how many do I think are going to flow through to get to the lead? And then what's my best estimate of that lead conversion? And what's my average value? And there's, it's somewhere on my website. I think there's a free download of this, but I might have to give my email. So it's lenskold.com, lenskold.com. I might have to email you or find a way to get that. But
we'll
look,
put it in the show notes too.
Okay, because it is there, and it's a basic template. But here's the idea: is that even if I have no real good information, when I spend money, where do I think it's coming back?
Yeah.
And I will tell you that out of all the companies that have taken ROI seriously over these years I've been working it, they all measure differently and they all get good at a different pace. But I would say 95% of it at least adopt that ROI scenario. In other words, and maybe not for 100% of every email campaign or every little thing, but for the big buckets, or at least for annual planning, if I give you this money, tell me what you think you're going to get back. And then we'll get better at measurements over time. But why wouldn't you do that?
That's really cool.
Why wouldn't you do that?
It reminds me, it's almost like, I'll throw a gun metaphor out there because it's hardcore marketing.
All right.
Bam. It's like, I've been guilty of this in like marketing, almost like a gunslinger. You got your pistol, and you're like, whip it out, fire that money bullet at something. And maybe a technology vendor was like, shoot me, or maybe you're just like, I'm going to go do content syndication. Wow, I'm going to try out this source or that source. But in the past, I said, as long as you test it out, you're good. But man, just a little bit of that preparation, kind of like preparing your day. The other extreme is in the Marine Corps, when we're at the rifle range, they're actually, they actually spend a lot of time with us. We do what's called, it's almost a day of dry firing. We're sitting cross-legged, we're sitting prone, we're sitting up on a knee, and we're holding our rifles for a long time.
Wow.
With no bullets, no ammunition, no rounds for those. And we're just sitting there in position, feeling the bone structure, feeling the support. But what happens? Wind, right? So we're like, oh, this wind is up here. What do you think the wind is? Okay, adjust.
Right.
What do you think the elevation is? And those are just two metrics, but what do you think that is? And then you have to think about it in advance. And guess what? Eventually, when you're actually firing, you shoot.
Yeah.
And what do you see? You see, and they actually mark your targets. That's a whole nother story. There's people down in the pits pulling the target. That's kind of a fun job. You pull the target down and you mark the thing with a big circle. And but they mark it and they let you know, okay, you didn't hit the bullseye. Okay, too much wind or not enough wind. Let me readjust.
This is great.
But I love this ROI scenario because you're forcing yourself to say, okay, I'm about to go spend $15K on an event or a source or some kind of lead generation activity, or maybe to move the funnel. What do I think this is actually going to do? And it forces you to say, well, what have the past ones done? And
that's right. And that's right. And if you look at your analogy, it's kind of like saying what could go wrong. It's also saying what could go right. In other words, what do I think? But it's saying, look, I will market to all these people. They all won't buy. Only a portion will. Right. And like you said, the second part would be, if I run this on a small scale and I see it, I would have to go back and what do I adjust? Right. Why did I get high engagement here and then everything just disappeared? In other words, probably one of the biggest things within this ROI scenario, but really in our measurements too, is leakage. Like we're trying to drive more results. So if you spend the money, where's the leakage points? Right. And that's your diagnostic. So I'll actually look for measurements that call that out, because my job is to improve this, right? Yes. So if you think about it, the financials would be, I spent this money, this many people bought and gave me this revenue. There's no funnel to that. You add the funnel, doesn't change the ROI. Right. It just says, wait a second, here's where I'm strong, here's where I'm weak.
Here's where it's leaking.
So it's the key thing is that leakage. Where's my weak spots that I have to try to figure out, because maybe I'm going to such a big audience that it's not really, I could get them engaged, but they don't really want to buy. Right. Narrow that audience.
And so tell me more. So you start with, hey, we think we're going to get X number of leads at this event, and we think they'll progress this way through their own funnel, or how do you map?
Yeah, no. I would say that, especially with events, and look, it's in B2B, because it's probably maybe it's the easiest to track, or that it's kind of a core responsibilities. We are usually looking for the journey to leads, and then we have to kind of figure out what happens from there. And we're really interested in that. Hopefully, we get that feedback loop. But we could say, if there's other outcomes, we can build it into the plan. But we're starting. To me, if I can't get close on the leads, then adding the little stuff is not going to help. But I would, right? Because so that's what I want to know is if because one of these events I could go to 10,000 people and maybe get 100 leads. The other one, I might go to 5,000 people, but I might not only get more leads, 150, because it's a better, it's a better fit to my group, but I might actually get more valuable leads. They're my audience. Right. So how do I show on paper that, because this is the conversations that go through, how do I show reaching fewer people and in fact, maybe let's even say in that scenario, I got fewer leads.
Yeah.
Because today the cost per lead might be too heavy a metric for me. Sure. But I say, oh, no, these are the people that convert. These are the people that have high value. In other words, it's kind of like a business case, but it's a little bit more strategic in that.
Yeah, it's like a business case, but more strategic. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's trying to say, how do I think I can make money? But it gives me that little bit more of, oh, wait a second. Now I can see if I go back and do something different here. I could take the same event and run a second scenario and said, here's what I think I would get if I changed my booth location, because the traffic goes up or the speaker. So I can look at, my base plan and an incremental spend too. It's this idea of, I just want to see the trade-offs.
Right. Also, what does success look like?
Yeah, exactly.
And having to write that out, there's a couple plans, thing called Strategic Coach, where they make the CEO, before he comes up with his crazy idea, he has to go ahead and write down, what does success look like if we do this?
What does it look like? Love that.
What does it look like if we don't do this? What does it look like if we do this? What's potentially what could happen from this?
Right.
But it makes you think about it. So I could see, doing these. You're right. It's more strategic than a business case, but running an ROI scenario gets you thinking, hey, and then I'm responsible for these numbers, and I want to track to see if I was right. And the more you do them, the better you'll get at them.
Right.
I mean, a couple ones you might be a little off, but it's almost like mini projections of a.
Exactly. Well, put it this way. We were making a decision to go to this event and not this event, or do this event but not have a booth. We're trying to make this based on our experience and that gut, right?
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, sometimes you put it. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you put that on paper, and what you thought was a good idea go, oh, it doesn't quite add up. But because you can't, there was probably 4 to 5 things in your gut that were right, but there was one piece you didn't weigh in as much, and you go, I didn't really think that was a big enough driver. And like you said, it gets easier because over time you start saying, wait a second, a swing in this input or this area makes a bigger difference. I got to make sure I always nail that one.
Yep.
Other things will work out, so.
It's like a little mini modeling. I could see, hey, I thought this show was great because it was in Vegas and I kind of want to go to Vegas.
Yeah, I know.
I literally have to meet every single attendee.
Yeah.
And they all have to buy in order for this thing to be better ROI than this other show that's in like Memphis.
It comes out that way sometimes. And but you know what? I find this is also good, especially if you have a good idea, good strategy, something new, something you think is breakthrough. You walk in to a non-marketing executive, they get this.
Yeah.
They say, look, this is the reason why, why we need to boost this or do something that maybe is not obvious. And you go, it's going to, and it might even be, look, this might not even work in the beginning. It might take us a year, but look at the outcome. We have such upside. So
that's cool. That's an awesome takeaway. We'll definitely get that and, link to your site with the show notes on that.
Okay, good.
I love that. And if we can sort of start infusing with people,
Yeah.
if I need to call you and knife hand you, this is a knife hand. That's what drill instructors do. They point and they go,
Yeah.
Cheshire, what are you doing? I'm like, oh,
Right.
but if I need to knife hand people, whatever
Yeah.
you need in order to get a little bit of that measurement discipline in your bodies,
Exactly.
man, the ROI scenario would be it's like doing push-ups. I love it.
Yeah. And look, it's also, besides having the tools and to get to the discipline, I should say, is you have the tools, you have the techniques, you need to build knowledge and capabilities. But look, this happens in time. You can't water hose it into people because it's new, it's different. Every one of us at some point went through this and said, oh, wait a second, give me something new, let me learn how to use it, and then make it a little bit more advanced because I can follow that. Right. So that adoption path is also pretty important. We're very attentive to that too when trying to introduce new things. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, man, this has been great. Who are you? How did you get who are? Did you go to India and?
Yeah, sure. I was on
Antarctica. How did you acquire this knowledge? Did you set out? Did you think you were going to be the marketing ROI guy?
No. Not exactly, but actually, I should say. It was, of course, like anyone, you have an accidental journey along the way, but then you start putting pieces together. But I started my career at AT&T in marketing, and I was running strategy and initially. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But and look, a lot of good discipline. But at the time, it was just getting competitive. And so the finance group comes down and says, here, you start measuring ROI. And I happened to be, I can't quite recall what got me, but I was doing my MBA in finance at the time because I thought, well, it's the opposite of marketing. Might as well learn something different. So I became the one pushing back going, we could run these numbers for you, but it doesn't mean what you think it means. It doesn't match up to the strategy. When we do this, we have behavior outcomes, and behavior translates into sales and then revenue. So I kind of pushed back, and it kind of got me in. So I became the marketing guy that could get the financials. Yeah. And then eventually, you get the analytics, because then also you had to figure out how to prove it out. I did a tech startup for a little while, but then when I started my own company, which is almost 21 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So it's been around. So
that's an anomaly, right?
Yeah.
It's supposed to last a year.
I know, right? So anyway, when I did that, I kind of realized, I said, some of the things we tried to do back at AT&T and some other companies, I was working actually for consulting with a company that was doing Epiphany CRM systems. I don't know if you remember that one. It was the first, but it was diapers for that. You might have been. Yeah. But it was anyway, but what I realized, I said,
the gold one. What's the gold one? There was like gold something.
Yeah.
Goldmine, I think.
Goldmine, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I realized was, hey, all these things we tried to do at AT&T to get to ROI, now there's all this data for marketing. It didn't exist. So I go, wait a second. And then there's all these people writing all these papers on ROI. I go, oh, no. That's not how you do it. So I wrote the book, and I said, we got to set the record straight. Yes. And since then, I work with companies all over globally, but it's usually now about how do we build the capability internally? So how do we get these tools in place? How do we take all these measurement techniques and kind of weave them into our mix, right? You'd love a good portfolio. And so it's been great. I love seeing it. There's always hurdles. It's mostly cultural. So we just find the way to get a few people going. There's always some champions in there.
And it sounds like you speak business. You also speak numbers and financial metrics. So hopefully you're putting, hopefully that covers both sides of the equation. The creative marketer or the analytics sales manager, or maybe the creative, so whoever you need to talk to.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, for me, which is why to me this is a marketing function, not a financial function, is it's always good strategy. Yes. It's always we could do something different better. So even though we have all these sources we pull from, at the end of the day, we're going to put something out there in the marketplace. It's going to do better than what we did before.
Make it actionable, right? Not just data. Yeah.
That's what gets people engaged. And so that's the part I like. So
that's cool. That's cool. You had that crossover too. It's almost, I see that with people, I love marketing, but I did a degree in this,
Yeah, right.
Computer science and also communications, and then I had a chance to, and so that's why I like the marketing technology at Cheshire, where that came from. But then,
that's true, yeah.
But I spent a lot of time doing sales with my own company, and I love
that's great.
the hell out of that. because marketing is often experimentation. It's like a science lab. It's gradually increasing, but you don't have this like puff of blue smoke and then the dragon appears. Where in sales, you get to ring a bell.
Yeah.
So I kind of like both sides. And so that's why we like to help bridge the gap with that, because I like both things. But I see how you bridge the gap by saying, oh, I know you're finance. You want to talk cogs? We'll talk cogs. Like, I get a master's in this. So you can talk finance, but you can also blend it with marketing and make data actionable. That's really cool.
Yeah. It's almost like saying there's one purpose, one mission in a sense, to use your language, but there's a lot of specialists that do different things. How do we kind of make sure they're pointing to the same thing, right? We want good financial health for the company. We want to spend smart. Who wants to waste money? There's always there's always somewhere that needs it. Let's put it where we get a big impact. And look, it's good for us, and it's even good for the customers too. We don't waste their time.
And I don't think anyone raises their hand when you say who wants to waste money. But when you're gunslinging,
I know.
You don't hit very often. In the movies, Clint Eastwood's, but everybody else other than Clint Eastwood misses left and right. So
everyone misses Clint Eastwood. So somehow they're not as good as him.
Sure.
You got
not
50 people shooting at you and no one's hitting you.
Yes, but cue that music from that show. That was
right.
So it was AT&T, maybe a couple startups but that was
it. I did
this is me. Like I
was with a tech company, so I got my B2B, and I was selling there as well. So, and I did marketing and sales, and it was really, it tied it all together for me, and that was a great experience there too. So, big company, small startup, and then make it my own.
Jeez. And so we were chatting earlier, because we like to get to the person. So you started out big company, and you just merged these two things. But it sounds like you also have. You chair a nonprofit outside of all this ROI-ness. Do you force this nonprofit to report their ROI, or maybe tell me a little more?
We're getting a lot of discipline in the nonprofit.
Yeah. A little measurement discipline.
Yeah. So my company is based in Asbury Park, New Jersey, which has been a music city for a long time. Now it's not huge compared to the other ones. It's a small beach town in New Jersey. But it goes back even before the days of Bruce Springsteen, and he had his day, but it was these kind of clubs that brought everyone together. It was one of those stops between either New York and Atlantic City or New York and Philadelphia that musicians would kind of make their way to.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm a big live music guy, but Asbury Park had a big downturn. It was almost a ghost town 15, 20 years ago, and then gradually has been coming back. But the last 5 years, this place is back. It's fully operational. I shouldn't say fully. It's the downtown area is doing great. I mean, on a Monday night.
Is it close to the water, or is it?
Yeah. I'm 6 blocks from the Atlantic Ocean right now.
But the hurricane and all that back a couple years.
No, nothing too bad. And
good.
But it's been on this economic revival to the point where in the middle of winter in a beach town in New Jersey, you've got 3 to 5 live events and within walking distance here. I mean, it's crazy how big it is.
I like that.
The nonprofit is here, and this nonprofit before me was part of that revival.
Yeah.
But then as the success happened, we've now shifted our attention to the youth in the underserved areas because it's not. There is a west side of Asbury Park that still needs the economic revival.
Sure.
Music is such a way to kind of give kids experience in terms of self-confidence and get them experience. And there is people can make a living here or there as well. So we do that. We do a lot of events, film festivals, different things that bring in money. But it's been just a great way to kind of connect the passion for music and a passion for making a difference in the community. So
what does it do with the kids? So you're saying the kids, different areas.
We send them
You put trumpets in their hands, or how does this work?
We put trumpets, violins, guitars, but no, we do. There's a portion that goes into the school, so you have your more traditional bands, and we fund instruments and stuff like that.
Oh, good, yeah.
Then we do after school, and in the after school, it could be learning guitars, ukuleles are part of the mix. Yeah. But there's also as in conjunction with the Boys and Girls Club, we have a hip hop institute. Yep. So kids are writing, recording, producing it, and really going pretty far. We have all this equipment set up for them, and then kind of as kids progress along, the big one is right here in town, we have a recording studio, and attached to that is this Lake House Music Academy.
Wow.
That they bring in really professional musicians to teach songwriting and stuff like that. So we bring kids from all these different programs that we have, and we give them scholarships. And so they're playing alongside with people that are from all these, kind of wealthy communities, and the kids, kids are kids. They're just music. There's no difference.
Yeah.
So they're growing up together too. And again, just getting rid of those barriers that kind of might exist socially. They just say, no, these are my best friends. And,
Yeah.
So that's that next generation. I think there's going to be some interesting music at some point coming out of Asbury Park. There already is. It's crazy how much original music's here, but there's a generation that's kind of growing up together that we'll see.
That's cool. That's really cool. I had a bunkmate in the Marine Corps. We actually, there's a bunch of us in this. I mean, every kind of race and nationality and age in this bunk. And we actually called our house, we had a little hut when we were deployed. We called it the United Nations, because it was just
that's perfect.
There's a bunch of us. And I remember my bunkmate, he did that. He would actually write beats. And apparently it's a big business. If you can write it, you might get some superstar going like, hey man, I like that tune. I'm going to buy that from you. And now you wrote that thing. So I remember he would play a couple for me, be like, hey Chesh, what do you think about this?
Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh wow. Like that's, so yeah, there's all kinds of
I was there a couple weeks ago, and this 13-year-old, while we're talking, and he's getting ready to do his thing, he's just using the computer and creating these beats on the computer. So it's computer skills. It's obviously the learning of the beats is kind of interesting. And then he's writing lyrics, which are pretty complicated. And I talked to one of the older kids, and she's like, oh my gosh, my grades in English and everything had just shot up. She goes, I didn't think about writing the same way. So
instead of writing that stupid paper,
I know
that stupid book you had to read, write something else. But I think it's the expression of yourself. I remember I used to, I would write some poems back in the day, or just some short stories. I would go look up in the thesaurus a different word for that.
Right. Because it has to rhyme. So then it forces you to, I need another word.
And I know all these really weird words now. Like
that's good.
Mercurial, and
that's great.
You never know what that is unless you had to Google it or translate it. So that's really cool. And to clarify for everyone, you're in the part of Jersey that roots for, you said, the Giants.
Yeah, I'm still in New York, where I'm far enough south, but closer to New York than Philadelphia. Where I grew up was a little further south, and it was really starting to switch over. So, and Giants Eagles is a pretty big rivalry for here because we're so close and we're intermingled.
Even though you did root for them in the Super Bowl, you were saying.
I made an exception. Partly, it became one of those.
I don't want to get you in trouble in Jersey.
I know, but I did put it out there publicly. I said, for one day, I would not wear green, but I did say, look, sometimes you got to root for the underdog. They had a good storyline, and I would kind of feel like then maybe these other Eagles fans could calm down a little bit and not be so riled up. Yeah,
you'd think, but they just went crazy.
But you're the Patriots fan, so
I am.
For you, it could be a disappointment, but at least you're in a position where it's disappointment. You still have a good track record. You can still feel great.
True.
Where those other teams that never win.
We've gone 10 times, we've won 5, so we're not bad. As opposed to teams are like, we've never been, or we've been.
I know.
But yeah, I mean, I was at this Super Bowl.
That's fantastic.
It was on the bucket list. And you know what? I almost went to the one last year. I mean, I guess it's just like a first world football problem.
Oh, yeah.
Like, my team went last year and I didn't go, so I went this year. But last year I was like, I want to go. And it was a great game to go to.
Oh, my gosh.
I would have had a heart attack, but it would have been an awesome game. And so this year I was like, you know what? Now I couldn't find anyone else that was crazy enough to go too. But I'm like, I'm just going to go. And I just booked the flight.
Perfect.
Away. Minnesota, not exactly ideal location in February. And people are like, oh, that's actually really pleasant here in Minnesota. Any month but this one.
Right.
And it was like -4.
That's right.
Plus, and it was
now
cold.
Inside the game was good, right? It was just more you had to
covered dome, which is why they'll never do one in Lambeau Field in Green Bay. But it was cool. It was one of those. It's worth doing.
That's great.
You got to put up with a bunch of Eagles fans in person.
I won't comment to keep some relationships I have in place within the family, and
ping me back later. Hey, edit that part. So I won't make you say "Go Pats" or anything. So no worries there.
That's all right. Good.
Well, Jim, man, this has been great. How can people get in touch with you, with your group? Maybe throw out some social at us, or.
I would say so the website's the best point because there's tons of content there. So lenskold.com, LENSKOLD.com. Or to connect with me personally, I welcome the LinkedIn invites. It always helps to have a little message there.
Yep.
And I'm Jim Lenskold.
Yeah, don't be creepy, everyone. Don't just send this guy, I don't care if you're lying. Don't just send this guy a connection invite. He gets 20 invites after this podcast. No. Say, hey, I heard you on the podcast.
There you go.
Which podcast? The Hardcore Marketing Show.
Hardcore.
You did a great job. Casey's so amazing. But then please connect with me, right? So
That's
send
right.
some kind of message.
It sounds like what most people are going to say, so they might as well go with it.
Yes. Okay. So LinkedIn's good to go as long as we say how we found you, or probably on your website. Get some information there. Look up that ROI scenario or the book.
Oh, yeah.
It's on Amazon, right?
The book is on Amazon. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, it's been out there a while. The content has not changed. So someone who's really trying to kind of build their own capabilities, that's fine. I would also say the website probably has a lot more content. Look at the white papers.
Okay.
There might even be there's a few webinars recorded on there, because then you could really, in fact, there's a good one. People could look up a good one on lead generation ROI.
Ooh,
it's a 4-part series we kind of tied together, but that's a great B2B starting place.
4-part series. Okay, cool. We'll find that too, and we'll link to it as well, because that would be really cool as a follow-up. Well, awesome, man. Well, thanks again. This has been awesome.
Look, I got to tell you.
So many more episodes and things to talk about.
I got to tell you, I love the hardcore marketing program. I love the energy around this, and I love the CSI. I mean, this is smart. I mean, look, people have to break it down into manageable components, and people can take it. They can actually do it. That's what we want, right?
Totally.
Go ahead and do it.
Totally. I would do a mic drop if I could, but it's
perfect.
Thing, so I can't. Yeah. But thanks again, Jim, and we'll definitely have you back on there.
Thank you, Casey.
Thanks to everybody else listening. This has been the Hardcore Marketing Show. We'll catch you on the next one.